Michael Vassell today, and we're talking about some of his books. And I'm really excited because I just finished one of his books. So the first question that I have for you is, when did you know that you wanted to start writing?
Oh, it's kind of funny because in school I was always kind of a slow reader and didn't really like reading or writing that much. And when after I got out of the military, I went to college. And when I was in college, I think it was college. It was English 103. You had to write a short story, and mine got picked to be published. And my prof at the time said, you should really think about being a writer. And I'm like, come on, man. I'm like, I want to go into engineering. I'm better at drawing than I am anything else. And he's like, okay. And but it got the bug going in me, So it was probably like about 6 months later, I bought a word processor and I tried writing, and it really didn't come out well. And so I think after about 60 pages, I dumped it, and then waited until years later, and I wrote a short story, and I kind of liked it. And then I had a I had a girlfriend break up with me that kind of crushed me, and I didn't really have a lot to do in my spare time, so I started writing, and before I knew it, I had my first book done. So,
What book was that? Was that the Chronicles?
no, it was Fine Again. It was a romance that I wrote. So
Chronicles was your next one, correct?
Chronicles was my third.
Third. Okay. What made you go from romance to more like thriller?
Well, I went to the first one I did was a romance, which was, I guess I called it a romance, but it was more like a Nicholas Sparks type, like The Notebook, where, kind of sad and you don't know where the story's going, but it is kind of a love story. So I wrote that out of depression. And then, and then I ended up, I always wanted to write a story about myself and my best friends growing up. So I started writing that, and I decided to make it into a supernatural story. And then I decided to just take it off the edge from there. So I ended up writing the Castle Chronicles. So I think I ended up writing all three of those before I wrote The Haunting of Matthew Keys.
That's the one I just read.
Right.
I actually have it with me right here.
Ooh,
I was really excited. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. And it's funny because it's got a lot of mixed reviews. I've had people that have said, I had one lady say it's the best book she ever read. And I was like, no, come on. There's so many better books out there. And she said she was serious. That's her favorite book ever. And I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. But then I had another person, I think gave me a 1-star review because they said they didn't like the ending, and they said it was just horrible.
Oh, I saw that, and because I always look at reviews when I'm done to see what other people thought of it, and I saw somebody said that the ending was predictable, and I was like, I could not have thought the complete opposite of that. Like, I was thinking it would go in an entirely different direction.
Yeah, it's funny because I think if you get enough eggs in one basket, you can kind of find the ones that are, a little bit off from the rest. So, I mean, it is possible that they just picked a cherry out, that I think it's this person, or I think this will happen, and they get it right. And then they're bummed about it. And I'm, oh, well.
Yeah, 99% of 20 pages, you could get where they were thinking that. But if I was halfway through the book, there was no way I knew.
Yeah, I think I did pretty good on that one as far as leaving it to the end. Anyway.
Where did you
I'm glad you enjoyed it, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Where did you get the idea for your latest book? I think it's Chronicles number 4, correct?
Yes, the one I just finished writing. Well, so what I did in when I want to say the Castle Chronicles is I kind of did it different than normal, I guess you'd say, urban fantasy books. The first book, all three of the books, and including probably the fourth book, are all kind of standalone. You could read them and not think about the other books. It kind of gives hints about the other things that went on, but you could really read it and just not worry about anything else. So the first book takes place when Mark, the main character, Mark Castle, when he's in his teens. And the second story in the book they kind of go back and forth. It goes from when he's younger until when he's older. The second story is when he's old and basically on his deathbed, and it goes back and forth, back and forth. And so the second book I wrote, I wanted to bring in the times. So what I ended up doing is I wrote when Mark was in his early 20s and events prior to him ending up in his deathbed. And then the third book, I ended up doing the kind of the middle time when he's in his late 20s and when he's in his like early 40s. Just to kind of, mix it up and make a complete story out of the three. And I thought, well, that's going to be it. I'm just going to write those three. And then I decided, you know what, I could write more. You get a character, and I had other people ask me, well, what's next? What's next? And I'm like, all right, I'll write another one. So anyway, so that it comes from after the end of the first book, when Mark passes away, he goes on to the netherworld and ends up meeting friends. And I won't go into too much of it if you haven't read it. But it takes place, it starts up there.
Those books are definitely on my TBR list. Like I have them coming up because I love fantasy too. And then I read The Haunting of Matthew Keys and I was like, let me see what else. Like, because I knew you had the castles, but I wasn't quite sure what they were about, since I think I met you at the Mid-Ohio Indie Book Author Expo. Long title there. But and then I kind of like zoned in on The Haunting when I was there, because I'm like supernatural and stuff like that. And I guess I didn't realize that the Castle Chronicles were pretty supernatural as well.
Very, yeah. Like I said, it's the storyline in the first book is a kid who finds out he has supernatural powers and is in trying to find out what to do with these supernatural powers and where they come from. He ends up learning about being able to contact the netherworld, and he contacts the netherworld because he's having these like strange vivid dreams of a girl calling out to him. And so he finds out from a spirit guide that this girl is trapped in hell, and the spirit guide basically says, you're the only one that can save her. So
that sounds really cool, and I can't wait to read it. What literary success looked like to you? So what's been like the point where you were like, I have done what I wanted to do so far?
So far, I just finished book 8. It goes to the editor in about a month. It gives me time to like kind of clean it up a little bit before my editor gets it. And so hopefully by the beginning, I'm guessing either the end of this year or beginning of next year, it'll be, published. But so that's book 8. I think it's more like baby steps. It's like, well, what could I do next? What can I write next? Could I write something different? I wrote a romance, I wrote urban fantasy, I wrote a book of short stories that are all like supernatural or just different types of fiction, all kind of rolled together, kind of like the Twilight Zone. And then I wrote my latest one that got published is a dystopian thriller about basically about an apocalypse type of situation. And actually it's doing really well. It's selling really well. I sold around 4,100 copies in the first 9 days.
Wow, that's really good.
Yes, I'm hoping that sales will be good on this. I'm waiting. I get reports like 3 months out. And so, or 2 to 3 months out. So I'll get my July report at the end of this month. So I'm all, how well did I do? Did I sell 50,000? Did I sell 5,000? Did I,
So is your goal to be like full-time writer, retire as being a writer?
Eventually, yeah. I would say my end game is retire from my company now and eventually just write full time.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Did you ever consider writing under a different name?
I did for like a brief moment, because I think every writer worries about how they're going to be seen. And, it's like stepping out into a plank above, a shark tank, it's, you don't know, I think every writer thinks that their writing is crap. And at least from what I've read from everybody, they read it and they like, one day I'm reading my stuff and I'm like, wow, I cannot believe I wrote this. This is fantastic. And then other days I'm like, I should burn the whole thing. So it was kind of one of those fleeting moments. Yeah, maybe I should go under Michael Stevenson or something like that. And I'll just put it all out there. And if people like it, they like it. If they don't, then so.
Well, it seems like they like it. So you're doing pretty good. 8 books out.
8 books. And from when I've talked to other people, including marketing people, they say, you're doing really well. You're doing really well for writer. In fact, what was it? Last year, I was voted the 4th best writer in Cleveland.
I read that too. And that's really exciting. Was this your first book expo that you went to where I met you?
First expo, actually, no. I did a book signing in 2019 at a local bookstore around Cleveland where it was 50 different authors. And ended up selling more books than the 2 ladies sitting next to me. So I was happy about that. But then they honed it down this year and I didn't get in. And that was part of me going to that book fair that I met you at was the one got canceled. So I'm like, oh, maybe I could go to this one. And a friend of mine, John Newman, he was the guy sitting next to me. He ended up getting a table and he's like, hey, do you want to join me? He's like, so I ended up joining on with him and did really well, I think.
I thought that one was really nice. I'd never been to one of those before. And I was like, this, especially because I'm from Grove City. So I was like, seeing my small town, this is really cool that they're doing this.
It was really cool. It was a really good venue. And I was kind of surprised that so many people showed up and spent all kinds of money. And
certainly took a lot of my money from there. But I've enjoyed it. And I've read almost all the books that I got so far. So I really liked it. Is there anybody that you wrote characters based off somebody in your real life?
Yes, I guess, and I think I mentioned to you before is I think when a writer writes something, they're writing a part of themselves. So you're not only taking from your experiences, but you're also taking from what you would do in a certain situation or how you would grow or something like that. So I think every character is you, but every character is not. So specifically, like I want to say in the Castle Chronicles, Mark is me in high school, and later on. His two best friends are kind of like my friends Dave and Rick in high school. Sorry, Rick's sister will probably kill me for forgetting his name momentarily, but I'm being interviewed. Anyway, it was basically, so it was like when we were in high school, we had a group of like 12 friends, and that's where I kind of got in the Castle Chronicles, the first book. He has a group of 12 friends. So each of the characters in there is kind of a personification, is that a right word, of somebody I knew in high school, either one of the group or somebody else I knew.
I hear a lot from people about them basing at least one character off of themselves when they start writing.
And again, all my writing is first person. So I think you end up, at least with me, you live that character. So you're like, what would I do in that situation? How would I go? And especially when I wrote The Fall, which is my latest published book. It's about a guy that all of a sudden all of the animals and humans start dying off in the world. And he's not sure why. He's not sure why he's surviving, but he and his wife end up leaving Cleveland and end up driving south to Florida. And then they end up driving around the country, trying to figure out what's going on and basically driving to survive. So in that, I'm like, well, what would I do here? How would I go there? And what should I do? He needs food, he needs drink, he needs, companionship, he needs music. So
Who are some of your favorite authors? Is Stephen King one? Because I know the book that you just described kind of reminds me of The Stand, and that's like one of my favorite books.
Well, it's funny because it's partly The Stand, it's partly Walking Dead, it's partly Mad Max. It's kind of like, I figure, well, what would you do in that kind of situation? And I know some people liked the book, they thought it was a great idea, and they really loved it. And other people are like, it was boring. All he did was drive around. I'm like, well, you didn't get to the heart of it. You didn't understand his feelings. You didn't read into it. You just, you know. um, anyway, but yeah, Stephen King is a huge Stephen King fan. Neil Gaiman, Neil Gaiman fan. In fact, I'm listening to audiobook Sandman Part 2 that just came out. So I love all of his works, Good Omens and American Gods, all of those. Boy, let me see. Frank Herbert, I read a lot of the Dune series. I read the first 7 books, and then 2 of the post books, and then 2 of the prequels.
Started the first Dune book, actually. I've never heard of it until I saw the commercial for the movie, and then I happened upon the book. And because since I sell books, I get hundreds and thousands of books in a month, and I happened to see it, and I was like, oh, I'm keeping this one for myself.
It's a fantastic series. I saw the 1984 movie and ended up reading the book, and then I read the second and the third, and it's just went on from there. But I want to say, yeah, besides them, well, I'm trying to remember who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide. It's right on the tip of my brain, but I love that series. Yeah, Robert Asprin is another good one if you have a chance to read it. It's the Myth Adventures series. All of his books have myth in the title, like Myth Adventure, Myth Direction. And no, I'm not lisping. It's actually Myth.
I've heard of those, I think, but I haven't read them. I've got such a list as it is. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, he's got, I think, 16 of those books. Oh, and then also love the Dresden Files. That's kind of also another, like, the Castle Chronicles. That's kind of where I can't say get that from, but kind of got the spark from it.
Have you read any of Lincoln Child's, like the Pendergast series? It's like Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child.
No, I don't think so.
That would be up like your alley and something that you would like. I just started reading it, and it mixes a lot of like science, like forensic science, and with like horror. Okay. And they punch it together. And the first book is like a museum beast that's like lurking and like going after people. They actually made a movie out of it, and I just started the series, and I'm obsessed with it.
And what was the movie?
Relic. It was like the 90s, I think.
Okay, I think I saw that movie, but I don't think I read the books.
Well, the books the movie. So if you read the book, forget about the movie, because the movie.
Okay. I know. I don't know if you're anything like me, but I always try to read the book before the movie.
Me too. That's what I did with The Stand, actually, because I watched it before the series. I actually read that in middle school, and I don't know who let me read that young.
That's a big book to.
I was at Disney reading it because I remember reading it on my family trip to Disney, and I was like, who is letting me read this? And also, why am I reading this at Disney World? But
hey, you get it's funny because I think my bug for reading really came was when I was in the military, and I was stationed down at Fort Hood, Texas. And one night somebody had left Pet Cemetery in the track. I was on like radio watch at like from midnight until 7 a.m. or 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And so there by myself in the middle of the night reading Pet Cemetery. And it was creepy as hell. And I'm like, wow, if a book can do that to you, I wonder what else there is. So I ended up reading a bunch of Stephen King. So
his is super good. Who would you say that your top supporter is?
Definitely my wife. She's kind of the one that when we first met, I was just beginning, or maybe, yeah, I would say only about a third of the way into writing Fine Again. And she is a avid reader herself. And in fact, that's kind of how we got together. It was like Doctor Who, uh, all the different books we read that were the same. Um, boy, I'm trying to think. There, besides Neil Gaiman, that was one of our hooks. I'm like, I love Neil Gaiman. She's like, oh, I do too. Ah. And but she's always and it's funny because she calls herself a writer's widow, because there are days where I sit down the entire day and just write, and she has to do her own thing. She like goes around the house, takes care of the animals, and you know, tries to keep them away from me, and make sure I have food and drink, because I get so wrapped up in it.
Has she read all of your books then, I'm guessing?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Which one's her favorite?
I think the Haunting of Matthew Keys.
And then what's your favorite book that you've written?
Oh, I don't know. I wanna say probably the first Castle Chronicles, Defiled. I think because that was more of a, I don't know, it was more getting this series started. But I love all my books. Obviously, I'd have to. I reread them all the time, trying to get back and trying to understand certain things, that went on, so I could write them in, either not duplicate them or duplicate them in other books. So, but I like the book of short stories I wrote. I thought that it was very Twilight Zone-esque, and I think it's probably the worst selling of my books, but
I just
think
saw the Twilight series too. I just watched the new one that's on, I think, Paramount.
Oh, well, I was saying the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Okay, not the Twilight series.
Well, I watched the Twilight Zone, the series that's on Paramount or whatever, the new one.
Oh, that okay. Yeah, because there's the old one with Rod Serling as the host, and then what's that?
I really enjoy that old series, so that's why I watched the new one.
Yeah, I know. Some fantastic stories. Another good one is what is it? If you have a chance, at the Night Gallery.
I think I've heard of that, but I haven't watched it.
That was I watched that. I used to go. My family would go over and visit my uncle, my my sister's godfather, and we'd end up going over on like Thursday nights or something like that. And the Night Gallery was always on, so I'd always sit next to him, and he and I would both watch it, and it was just creepy. And like I'm like 7, 8 years old watching this, and probably where I got my love for strange fiction. And
so what's your favorite genre to write in, since you've written in slightly like all over the place?
I'd say to write in probably the Castle Chronicles, probably the urban fantasy. But I write what I like, and I like just about everything. So that's why I wrote, the Nicholas Sparks, because I did love reading the Nicholas Sparks book, and I loved seeing the Notebook. But I love, pretty much everything.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I am too. I'll read a little bit of everything. So it's not anything that I wouldn't like, except for historical fiction. I don't get into that too much.
Oh, yeah, I want to say I love history, but I don't love historical fiction.
Me too. I will read a nonfiction history book all day, but if you hand me like a fiction one, I'm like, I can't even read this.
Agreed.
And then what does your writing process look like? Are you more of a planner, or is it more spontaneous? Like you have an idea in the middle of the night and you just shoot up out of bed and go?
Definitely a planner. And people have asked me before, well, how do you end up writing a novel? And like my process is, I come up with an idea in the middle of the night. I'll wake from a dream and say, oh wow, that was good. I could turn that into a story. So I'll sit there and I'll pull out my phone and I'll jot down a couple of notes, and then try to get back to it the next day, and see if it's got any teeth. See if I can write it. And that's kind of what I did with the Fall. Is it was one of those that I had the idea kind of in the middle of the night. And then I started writing and I thought, oh boy, this is trash. This is not good. And I just kept on at it and at it and at it. And it ended up being pretty decent. So, but I do plan it. I end up, I'll write the first maybe 30 pages of the book and see if I can lead from there, see what the ending would be. And then I'll go ahead and I'll maybe write the end chapter. And then I'll write a little bit more here and then maybe add on to the end and then I fill in the middle.
That sounds like a good way to do it.
Yeah. So
What-
how do you, like I make A and I make B and I try to connect A and B.
What advice would you give to a new writer that's looking to write a book?
No matter what you do, just write. And I like to say this quote, and I don't know where it came from, but a writer writes always. I've told many of my friends that is many of my writer friends. Just in fact, I was talking to John when we were at that show that he was saying something about, well, if you're not writing, you just, he didn't believe in the part about like my muse is with me, that kind of thing. And I said, I agree, because my thing is if you get stuck here or you get stuck in this book, write something else. Just keep writing. Go back and forth, write a little here, write a little there. For me, I'll go ahead and I'll kind of map out the chapters in a book. And if I get stuck here, not knowing what the character's going to do, I kind of know what they're going to do at, like 5 chapters up. I'll start writing that, and then this will come to me, and it'll kind of just all come together.
And then if you could spend a day with any author, who would it be?
Stephen King, I think. Just either him or Neil Gaiman. I think Neil Gaiman would be cool to hang out with. Just I love this British accent, and just the way, because I listen to a lot of his audiobooks, and just his narration is fantastic. So I'd love to hang out with him and just chit chat. But with Stephen King, kind of he would be my go-to. Just kind of not to like pick his brain or anything, just to hang out with him.
Because he definitely seems like pretty quirky and like cool.
He seems quirky and cool, kind of like and I know he likes the Boston Red Sox, but and I'm an Indians fan, so maybe go to a game together. And I'm sorry, I should say the Guardians. I don't know if you heard that. Yeah, Cleveland's being renamed the Guardians.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, but that would be cool. Just hang out, eat a hot dog with him, watch the game, and
I personally want to see his house. Have you seen the outside of it? It looks so cool.
Yeah. In fact, if you have a chance, you look up my house sometime. I've got a few pictures on Facebook of it. It's kind of, in fact, my front porch has 2 dragons on it, and my door knocker is a dragon.
Oh, that sounds really cool. That's like like dream haunted house is like my dream house, like the dark Addams Family house.
Yeah, my house, in fact, when my daughter, after my wife and I bought the house, she's like, Dad, that's your perfect house. That's your perfect. I mean, you really can't see. Well, I got those are my book covers behind me. And that is my buddy's band. Actually, a couple of buddies have that band. And so I go to a lot of shows. I go to a lot of concerts. So, but we have eclectic artwork everywhere throughout our house. In fact, the one that creeps my bunch of people out, including my granddaughter, is this one picture of it looks like a grandma's house with a little girl standing outside, and there's like skulls around her, and she's staring in this window, and there's like a ghoul inside the house.
That sounds like right up my alley too. I also collect taxidermy and like oddities, so like nobody will come to my house at all. My husband, eventually I'm gonna have like an oddities basement. It's gonna be the basement of my children's nightmares.
If you ever come up to Cleveland, go to Cleveland Curiosities. A buddy of mine owns it, and it's all taxidermy and wolf skulls, and he's got some real oddities there, including some like 1850s surgery equipment.
Oh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's really, you go in there and you're like, whoa, this is just
I want my house to look like.
right. And that's actually my house. In fact, you can see the coloring on the wall. I kind of made my goth basement down here.
That was my office room, but I recently, since I started this business, I had to take down a lot of my stuff and turn it into an office, but the walls are all dark. You did say that you went to a lot of concerts though. Who's your favorite person you've ever seen in concert? Straying from books.
Oh, wow. Because I see probably, well, besides COVID, I think one year I saw like 100 bands in a year.
Gosh.
Yeah, but my wife and I went to Incarceration.
Oh yeah.
That's yeah, they had like 30 bands there in 3 days, and three different stages. Um, but my favorite band, I gotta say, well, I love Slipknot, and that was part of the draw for going to Incarceration. But I love I don't know if you know anything about industrial music or
I listen to a little bit of everything.
okay. Yeah, it's kind of like an offshoot from like Bauhaus and Nine Inch Nails, and more Nine Inch Nails. It kind of rolled on from there. But I go see a bunch of bands like that a year, and
Yeah.
it's usually some dark and small place where there's only 100 people that show, and usually you can get right next to the stage and have the people scream at you and.
That sounds really cool. I think I've only ever been to like big concerts with like a bunch of people.
Oh, I go to both. In fact, before that, it was like, yeah, about 3 weeks ago, Corn came through with Stained, and so my wife and I went to that. Um, like I said, we went to Incarceration, where Slipknot was, and Mudvayne, and oh, the Who.
Oh, I bet they would be cool.
But the HU is the name of it. It's a what is it? Mongolian throat heavy metal.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, they're kind of like, oh, like that Mongolian throat music, but it's all like guys on stage playing cellos and shredding guitar and deep bass and everything while they're singing and stomping and everything. It's really cool.
That does sound really cool. The closest I think I've probably come to any of that is seeing Fall Out Boy in concert last 2 years ago.
Okay, yeah, I saw them probably like 10 years ago now.
Other
And
than that, I see some weird people. Like my coolest would probably be Cher, Lady Gaga.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
I took my mom to Share a few years ago. Saw Lady Gaga with some friends. My buddy had the one that's in that band back there. He had some extra tickets, so he ended up having something on the screen that was weird. Anyway, but yeah, so yeah, I like I said, I do go to also go to some classical concerts. My wife went to a musical high school, and so she and her family are like huge into classical music. So
Yeah, that
that's
sounds really cool. So that's probably what you do most of the time in your spare time.
right. Go to shows, hang out with my buddies. Like 90% of my friends are musicians, so there's a couple of cool rock bars around here that I'll hang out at.
Cleveland's
Shout out to Foundry and the Winchester and the Richland. Oh, and the 5 o'clock.
a place to be if you want to go see rock music.
And that's part of the reason that I live like on the west side of Cleveland, is because I think it's one of the biggest, probably the most eclectic city in Cleveland, and it definitely has a lot of musicians that hang out around here. It's all tattoos and cool outfits and stuff.
So do you go there to celebrate when you finish a book?
Yeah, in fact, I'm what was it the other day? The other day when I got done with the first draft of Deceived, which is going to be the next book in the Castle Chronicles, when I finish it, and the wife's like, so we're going to go out and celebrate? And I'm like, I'm too tired. I'm like, I need to stay in. We did go to a wedding. A buddy of mine got married last Saturday and had what was it? It was a Alice in Wonderland themed wedding.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's a really cool. They were all dressed up and kind of like they had these two little bridesmaids that came out, throwing rose petals, and one was dressed like Alice, and one was dressed like the White Rabbit.
Oh, that's
And
really cool. So did the guests dress up too?
no, they pretty much just said wear wherever you want. So yeah, I mean, I wore like a suit jacket and a tie and stuff, but yeah, a lot of friends did, and in fact, one buddy had like what was it, all Abercrombie and Fitch, or like and not what do you call it, the oh, he had like an Izod shirt, I think, and then it was kind of, I'm like, I thought you were gonna like dress up, and he's like, this is dressed up.
What's your favorite like snack to eat while you're writing?
I'm very bad with eating, with nutrition. So like, I'll sit around and eat popcorn. I like a lot. And so if you go to the store, you can get hot popcorn, kind with either like jalapeno flavored or just like, I don't know, yeah, hot popcorn, hot cheddar popcorn. I'll sit around and eat that until my fingers turn red.
That is a good snack. I do eat popcorn a lot.
Yeah, I eat way too much.
What's some fun tidbits about your life that you think readers would be surprised about?
I had to think about this because I actually, when because you sent me some questions, and I'm like, well, I've been through a lot. I've done a lot. I've been to all 50 states. I've traveled, in Europe and stuff. And but I think that a lot of people are surprised to hear that I didn't graduate from high school. I dropped out in my senior year, and I took some time. I took about a year off, and then I ended up getting my GED in it like a party weekend. Ended up leaving. What was it? Leaving Sunday morning from Cleveland. I drove to Akron U, picked up my buddy who was in his freshman year there. We drove down to Miami U, met another buddy there, drank all night, got about 3 hours of sleep, then drove to Columbus and took my GED.
Oh my gosh. Well, you passed.
I passed. Oh yeah, my math was in the upper 90 percentile, but my what was it? My reading comprehension just barely passed.
And you became a writer.
And I became a writer. I know, go figure. And then so I after I got my GED, I joined the military to get money for college. And so when I got out, I ended up going to college, and I got about a year and a half under my belt, and I realized I love mechanical engineering, but I had a family to support, so I ended up dropping out of college and started working full time as a mechanical engineer.
Well, you pretty much still did what you wanted to do both times.
Yep, I've been a mechanical engineer for 30 years now. So
that's crazy. Does your family know that you write? Have they read all your books outside of your wife?
Oh yeah, I don't know if they've read a lot. I think my daughter has. My son, I'm pretty sure my son has as well. But my mom, not so much. She knows I'm a writer. My mom's kind of like elderly now, so she doesn't get a lot of it. But she appreciates me and up talks me to her friends. Yeah, most of my family is very supportive on it, and I'm always getting questions from family and friends, like, what are you working on? What are you writing next? And, are you doing any more of the Castle Chronicles? And then the latest one was after people have read The Fall, they're like, are you going to do The Fall 2? Because I kind of left the ending open. So where, it could be that something bad is going to happen to the guy, or it could be something good. You just don't know. And not to give too much away. But I had one person give me a 2-star review because they thought it was a crappy ending. That basically they hated the fact that I killed off the character. And I'm like, what did you read? Because that's not what I wrote.
Maybe they read a different book and wrote the wrong review.
I have no idea.
So
all reading is subjective. So
do your kids tell people like, hey, my dad's a writer? Are they like super proud about it?
Oh, my granddaughter too. My granddaughter wants to be a writer now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, is she 11 now? Ugh. 10 or 11. She's going to be 11 next in a week. Wow. About a week and a half, she's going to be 11. So
They get old so fast, don't they? I can't believe my daughter's like,
yeah.
it's insane.
How old is she?
1.5. She's almost 1.5, and I can't believe it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know my youngest granddaughter's 3 now, and she's a pistol. And I know they just grow like. In fact, my grandson is like phenomenal at soccer, and so I took him. My wife and I took him to soccer last Saturday before the wedding, and he's just out there and he like scored 2 goals and just like running around, these kids and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know where he gets it from. It's not me.
I know I didn't like sports or anything when I was younger. My daughter's just the phase now where I'll be telling her no, and she'll look me directly in the eye and like Hulk smash her gate and like run away from me. So it's chaos in my house. Especially because you've got a lot of animals too. So,
Yep.
we talked about that, I think, the other day.
Yep. Yeah, I've got the 4 animals. In fact, the book of short stories is kind of dedicated to my dog Mel, or our dog Mel. He's on the cover of the book, and each of the stories has him written into it.
Oh,
including the first story is called Mel's Special Day, and the last 3 chapters are about him. So
I saw pictures of him, and he's adorable.
he's a Rot lab mix, and he's so much personality.
I feel like anything with like lab in them too, or like lab, rot, pit, like anything. They're just like the most cuddly dogs.
Mm-hmm.
They think they're lab dogs even though they're big.
How many dogs do you have?
3.
3 dogs, yeah.
That's
a lot.
And they're all like, 2 of them are pretty like bigger, so it's just chaos at my house.
Believe me, I know. Well, I don't have the, we just have the 1 dog and the 3 cats, and the 3 cats all have their own personalities, but they pretty much stay away,
Yeah.
They either want on your lap or they don't want anything to do with you.
That's one nice thing about cats is they don't follow you from room to room like dogs do.
Right.
Did you always want to be a writer? So when you were like in elementary school, what did you say that you wanted to be when you grew up?
Oh, astronaut, of course. An astronaut. Yeah, well, I've always been kind of a nerd. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I was watching Star Trek, the original series, and I've always loved the sci-fi type stuff, like including like the Incredible Hulk, the Lou Ferrigno, what's his name, Bill Bixby, back in the day, and of course the $6 Million Man. In fact, I talked back when when I think it was 12 or 13, my parents got when I was 8, my parents got divorced. When I was 11 or 12, we went to Hawaii, and I talked my mom into going to Universal Studios because I love movies. And so I ended up getting into like a little, like what they do is when the group comes through, they pick somebody, to make a movie. So I was the $6 Million Man for like a little 5-minute movie. So.
And then if any of your books got turned into movies, who would you want to play the characters?
The only one I could really think of, and part of when I was writing, so I mentioned the Castle Chronicles. The first is Defiled. The second book is called A Hitman Walks into a Bar. And so I've always loved the movie Grosse Pointe Blank. So I always envisioned that Mark Castle as an adult, as a hitman, is John Cusack. But besides that, I really can't think of anybody. So they're all the characters are kind of me, and I can't imagine anybody really playing me. So
one day when they take off, you'll find out who they choose.
Hope so someday.
Is there anything else you want to add to readers who would be watching this?
No, just if a high school dropout can do it, anybody can. It's not easy to do. It's it's something that it does take a lot of passion and late nights and pulling out of your hair, because you get so frustrated at certain things or not being able to write in certain times or whatever. But it's definitely worth it. Just keep going at it, keep writing, and you can do it. You can do it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your like super busy day to talk to me. I know you have.
Yeah, I've got to go back upstairs and engineer conveyor now.
I don't know. You could have had a concert to go to tonight.
No. That's actually, there is one that I'm blowing off tonight because I have to work.
Oh, well, I lucked out then.
Yeah. No, you were booked. It was, after this, I think the show starts at 9, but
well,
no way I'm going to be able to make
I'll
it.
make it.
No, I can't. No, I gotta pop back online, and I promise the customer.
Time to talk to me.
No, thank you for wanting to talk to me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I really liked your book and I was excited to reach out, and you responded pretty quickly to me, so I was excited.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and hopefully you like my other stuff too.
Yeah, I can't wait to check out the other books.
And this is where I go. It's all on Barnes and Noble and Amazon. I have 2 Audible books out. The Haunting of Matthew Keys and The Fall are both in Audible. So yeah, buy them. They're cheap.
Well, thank you so much, and I'll let you get back to your night.